Hello, welcome back to my very inconsistent YouTube channel that has no real through line to the content. It's just whatever I feel like making, so welcome. Feel free to hit subscribe and turn on notifications for more chaotic content. If you're wondering why I'm dressed like Barbie, it's because I just got done filming an ad for TikTok. So I thought I'd keep the content going and talk about some books that I read in April. This has 5 books out of the 7 that I read this month. One I did read on my new Kindle. The other 2 were library books, so I will just put those on the screen when I get to them. Before I get started, I have to show you this tote bag that I bought myself. Look at it. So it's a Dracula themed tote bag. This is a scene from when Jonathan goes to see Dracula at the beginning. I don't know, it's another side. The ends look the same. And then on the front is the castle, and I love it so much. I've been using this everywhere I walk when I bring my laptop with me, my books with me, to do some reading or some work on my laptop, and it's just really fun to glimpse it in windows as I pass by, because I'm like, I don't know, it brings a little bit of whimsy to my walk, so I just wanted to show you that. The first book I read in April was Secrets of a Charmed Life by Susan Meissner. This is set in World War II London and the English countryside. It centers around 2 sisters who become separated because of the war, and we read to find out if they will find their ways back to each other in the end. And at the beginning of the story, there's a journalist who comes to interview one of the sisters because she wants to write a paper for, I think it's like a newspaper. She wants to enter a contest to see if her story will be chosen. I wasn't that excited to pick this up just simply because I'm kind of tired of World War II stories. I feel like it's a heavily saturated time period to tell stories. I realize that the stories that are told from this time period are beautiful and important, but generally speaking, when I'm perusing books, if I see it set in World War II, I typically won't pick it up. So this isn't something I would have picked up on my own, but my mom gifted me this book. She said she really enjoyed it, so I thought I would give it a go. I'm also on a mission right now to read every single book that I have on my TBR. And actually, you know what? It's going pretty well, so I'm pretty proud of myself. I was very surprised, actually. I really enjoyed this. I thought it was very touching and beautifully written. Susan Meissner's prose is engaging, and you know, I usually say I really love flowery writing styles because it just feels so colorful and expansive to me, but hers is much, I'm not saying it's flowery, it's like dialed down a bit. It's just very rich in her storytelling. I don't know how else to explain it, but this was a very easy read because the story was just told so well. I actually teared up quite a lot at various points throughout this story. I was shocked to find out that the story that happens in this isn't something that actually happened, because the expertise that Susan Meissner told the story, I thought it had to be inspired by a real story, but I think in the acknowledgements I read that it was a work of fiction, but anyway, I'm not entirely sure on that. One of my favorite quotes in this was, "I'm choosing to tell my story, Kendra. Who listens to it is not my burden, telling it is." I really loved that. That's a quote that I feel like I really needed to hear and digest, because I always feel nervous about making content like this or putting myself out there, because I don't like rejection, like most people. I rated this 4 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. I don't remember why it wasn't a 5-star. I think probably just because it's not like an all-time favorite. Why didn't I rate it 5-star? I don't know, sometimes I rate books based on a feeling, and the feeling I had from this was that I really loved it, but probably 4-star felt right, or 4.5. On to the next. The second book that I read in April was What My Bones Know by Stephanie Sue. This one I listened to on my Libby app, so it was an audiobook, but I loved it so much that I had to buy my own copy because this altered my brain chemistry. 5 stars, like so good. This is a memoir Stephanie Fu's story of how she healed and recovered, and her general story around her trauma in her life, and coming to find out as an adult that she has complex PTSD or CPTSD. I don't read a ton of self-help books, biographies that often anymore because I'm in my fiction era. This I wanted to read for a long time because I've always been interested in the nature of trauma and healing yourself. Hearing her story was just so interesting, and I can't recommend this book enough. I'm already planning to reread it and annotate it because there were definitely some things I read in this that I want to journal about. Easiest 5-star of the month for sure. The third book I read in April was Nettle and Bone by T. Kingfisher. I do not have the copy of it because this was a library book. How do I describe this book? You know what, I'm just gonna read you what it says on Goodreads because I got nothing. After years of seeing her sister suffer at the hands of an abusive prince, Mara, the shy, convent-raised, third-born daughter, has finally realized that no one is coming to their rescue. No one except for Mara herself. Seeking help from a powerful grave witch, Mara is offered the tools to kill a prince, if she can complete 3 impossible tasks. But as is the way in Tales and Princes, Witches and Daughters, the impossible is only the beginning. So, she's trying to save her sister, essentially, and she has to complete these impossible tasks in order to do it. This is the 4th book by T. Kingfisher I've also read What Moves the Dead, What Feasts at Night, and Thornhedge. So this being the 4th book I've read by her, it is probably my least favorite of every book I've read by her. I absolutely loved What Feasts at Night. That I rated 5 stars. This one I rated 2 stars. Now, I understand that a lot of people really love this book. It's rated really highly on Goodreads, but for me, I couldn't get into it. It was a bit bizarre. It reminded me of like a really weird dream. You know, I have a ton of weird dreams, and I'll wake up and I'll be like, what the hell was that? And that's kind of just how I felt about Nettle and Bone. Oh, I wrote this down too in my review. It reminded me of a game of improbable mission from Whose Line Is It Anyway? Like, it was just so, like, what? The only thing about this book that I really liked was Fenris. I thought he was a great character, and we need more of him in the real world. Thank you. I was happy with what happened between him and what's the main character's name? Yeah, Mara. Okay. I love the types of topics that T. Kingfisher writes about. I love how different the stories are. I mean, she certainly puts her own spin on these fairy tales, but for some reason this one just didn't do it for me. Again, like, if it sounds intriguing, check it out, because I am certainly the minority in my just not really enjoying this book. I've lost count at this point. I think this is the 4th book that I read in the month of April, was Gothikana by RuNyx. I think that's how you say her pen name. Now, listen. I know that, okay, this is classified as dark romance. Now, if you've ever read dark romance, there's something. It's a lot of women being with serial killers or mafia bosses, or, you know, that's the point of dark romance. It's supposed to be taboo and dark, you know? What it's about is this girl named Corvina, I know, hold on, who is accepted into this higher education kind of school. It's in a castle though. It's called Varenmore. When I read the dust jacket for the book, it was like Dracula meets Beauty and the Beast or something, and I was in immediately, because anytime Dracula is involved, I'm there. I will read anything that is involving Dracula. And then at this school, there's this teacher who is still a student there, but he's also a teacher there. He's like in his late 20s, I think, and Corvina is like an older student at the school. She's like 22, I think. So there's still an age gap, but it's not terrible. And they have a relationship together, and there are these crazy things going on at the school. People are dying. There's this mysterious woods. Like, people don't know what's happening, but there's this large consensus that the school is cursed. So Corvina is there to try to help figure out what's going on, in addition to having this romance with this mysterious man who we don't really learn anything about ever. We learn a few things, but not really. And she can also kind of like, she has like magical abilities, I guess. I don't know if I'm explaining this very well, but like, all that being said, I actually really enjoyed it a lot. Putting the toxic relationship aside, because it was definitely toxic, but again, that's kind of the point of dark romance, I guess. I hope someday I read a dark romance where the relationship is still like somewhat healthy as it can be in a dark romance, but you know, still dark in some way. I don't know if that exists, but anyway. And the reason why I like this so much is because it reminded me of the nostalgia I feel about books like Twilight. The vibes in this were vibing for me, you know, it was giving. It just felt like a cozy dark read, I guess, and I would absolutely not recommend this book, like just in general, because I know that it's not for everyone. Even though this is rated very highly on Goodreads, I watched the book Leo's video on this book, and she like tears it to shreds in that video, and I'm like, you know what? That's fine. Art is subjective, whatever. I enjoyed it, and that's all that matters. I also really like this because I could tell that it was a very personal story to the author, the way that she spoke about her mother in the story. And in the book she calls her mama, and I don't know why, just like, that made me feel sort of endeared to the author. And I was right, at the end of the acknowledgement she says that her mother was just so supportive of her writing, and so I really loved that a lot. There were also just like little details in this book that I really appreciated, like the fact that Vad, which is the main love interest's name, yes, okay, again, the names in this book are something else, but he got a vasectomy. And that in itself, I was like, okay, I like that. Point for, you know, liking Vad. He is still an asshole, and he's still, you know, mysterious, even though there's like no real reason why he's mysterious, because we never learn anything about him in the book. And my absolute least favorite part of it was him as a love interest. I was like, I don't care. Why are you acting so tortured when you're just some guy at a university who's rich and who's a teacher? Like, why are you so tortured? This isn't the tortured poets department, okay? Like, you're fine. I don't know why you're acting so dark and broody over nothing, but I liked the rest of it. I enjoyed the atmosphere, and, you know, the spiciness was interesting. I don't know. I don't want to speak too much about that part of it. There was one thing at the end that was never really explained, and I was like, okay, are we gonna get a sequel then to explore that more? And turns out we're not getting a sequel, so I'm just kind of like, okay, yeah, that's fine. I rated this 4 stars. Proceed at your own risk. And that's all I have to say about that. The 5th book I read in April was One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig. This is about, I don't know if this is like a YA fantasy. It didn't read like YA to me. Maybe new adults, I don't know. But this is about a young girl named, I don't know how old she is. I forget how old she is, but I'm sure she's like early 20s. Elspeth Spindle, and she lives in this world that is governed by this magic that has gone wrong, basically. There's this thing known as the Mist, that this land that she lives in, where does she live again? Blunder. She lives in a place called Blunder, and this spirit of the wood cursed this town because they misused magic. I think that's what it is. And so there are these magical cards that give you certain powers based on what the card is. Like, there's one called the Maiden, where if you use the card, you become extremely beautiful. But there's also something that the magic will take from you the longer you use the card. So it's not just like you get to be beautiful forever. There's also a consequence of using the magic. And ever since she was a child, there's this fever that goes through the town that makes children, I think it's usually children, sick. And if they survive the fever, then they get like some magical ability, but the king in charge wants to kill these children because magic is like the worst sin ever or something. And she accidentally, as a child, absorbs one of these cards into her body, and it's called the Nightmare. And he lives in her head basically. So nobody knows that she has magic. So she lives, and then the story goes from there. There's also some romance in this. I loved the romance in this. I don't usually accept new book boyfriends that easily, but Raven was added to the list. I loved Raven. If men ever want tips on how to treat women, they should read this book. He was so respectful and strong and sweet and just everything. I loved him. My favorite color is green too, so I love the use of green in this book. It's brought up constantly. The vibe of this is just very lush and dark, and it feels like the aesthetic that Beauty and the Beast has. Oh, and I did tab this because after the first couple pages, I was like, oh, I'm gonna love this. I was so shocked to find out that this is Rachel Gillig's debut novel, or at least I think I'm remembering that correctly, because this was so well written. I rated this 4.5 stars, and looking back on it, I think I still would rate it that, maybe more like a 4-star, just simply because even though this was so well written and so well done, the characters were amazing, it was a fresh, interesting concept, there was just something about it that everything fit too perfectly, if that makes any sense. Like, I don't know, it didn't have like a roughed up at all feeling to it. I don't know if that makes absolutely any sense, but I really did enjoy this quite a lot. This is all over Book Talk, all over Book Anything, and so I absolutely recommend this to anybody who wants to read a dark fantasy novel where the romance and world building is actually really good. Yeah. I immediately did go out and buy 2 Twisted Crowns, so I will be reading that at some point. I think I read this in like a day too, because it was such a page turner. Definitely recommend. The 6th book I read in April was Human Design, the revolutionary system that shows you who you came here to be by Jenna. This one I will speak very quickly about, just simply because I don't feel like human design is something that I know a lot of people talk about ever. But if you're into astrology or the mystical arts, tarot, any of that, well then human design is just another one of those things that is supposed to help you to live a better life. And I find human design absolutely fascinating. I mean, when you understand what it actually is, it's so accurate to you specifically. One of the things that people criticize astrology for is that it's not specific enough. I disagree with that. As a Hellenistic astrologer myself, but it just depends. Like, they're 2 different systems. This is more so it's you to a T, whereas the astrological chart is like everything in your life. So this is much more zeroed in on your individuality, what makes you special. And human design is very complicated. There's a lot that goes into it. So I was surprised that this book is very short compared to other human design books I've read, but I feel like Jenna gives you enough information in this to just know enough to get started, because it can kind of be debilitating when there is so much information that you like want to take in order to understand it. But this gives you enough that you can start implementing it into your life so that you can notice if it works for you or not. That's how Jenna and a lot of people talk about human design, is that it's an experiment, and if it doesn't work for you, then don't use it. If it does, it can be a really fantastic journey for you. So I loved this. Check out Jenna Zo's work. She has, I think, the #1 human design website out there, and all you need to know to get your specific chart is the same as getting an astrological chart. The date, the time, and the place. That's what you need. And again, it needs to be accurate, so check your birth certificate. I gave this 5 stars because it was great. Loved it. And the 7th and final book I read in April was It Starts With Us by Colleen Hoover, and I read this on my Kindle, which I was very resistant to buy, but I did finally buy it because I'm going to Scotland in June, and I didn't really want to bring any book with me because it's gonna be a long trip anyway, and I don't want to bring extra weight if I don't have to. So I did get one, And I did enjoy reading the book, although I still much prefer actual books. That's just my take on it. But anyway, I read this very fast because of the fact that like Kindle reading, I do feel like makes you read faster. That probably isn't true, but I also did actually enjoy this book quite a lot. Now, like, I feel like I don't even need to tell you what It Starts With Us is about because I feel like everybody knows already, but this is the second book. It comes after It Ends With Us. It's about Lily Bloom and Atlas Corrigan, and it's them just getting to be happy after the events of It Starts With Us because, or It Ends With Us. Yeah, I don't really have a ton to say about this because I'm not a huge Colleen Hoover fan. I don't really like her writing style. I think it's a lot of telling and not showing. I think it's a bit simplistic. I think some of her books are a bit problematic, but I did enjoy this one. I did, because I thought that her relationship with Atlas is really sweet, and it's nice to finally read a book that it's not like super heavy on the drama, it's just a main character getting to be happy. So I enjoyed it. And now I'm going to move into my TBR for the upcoming month. First, I'll start with two books I'm reading concurrently, which is probably a bad idea because these are both very long, but I did start A Court of Wings and Ruin by Sarah J. Maas, and this goes with my outfit. I like it. I am about 175 pages into this so far, and I'm actually really enjoying it. And by the way, I'm not going to talk in depth about all of the books on the TBR just because I feel like that's another video, another topic. But I am enjoying this a lot so far. I really liked ACOTAR. Didn't really like ACOMAF. But this one so far I'm enjoying a lot, so we'll see how this goes. And then I'm also reading this behemoth, Rhythm of War by Brandon Sanderson. I remember I read Oathbringer in about a week and a half, so if I accomplish that with this one in that amount of time, that would be great. And then I have three others here that I hope to get to. The first one is The God of Endings by Jacqueline Holland. This one I got because I bought two books from Barnes & Noble, and the woman was like, I think the thing was like buy two, get one free or something. So I was like, yeah, of course I want a free book. So she said this one was about vampires, and again, I was sold. Then I also have Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies by Heather Fawcett. This one again is all over BookTube and Book Talk and everywhere. So of course I had to pick it up. Again, I'm not really into fairy content. You know, I say that and I'm reading, you know, the ACOTAR series, and I'm gonna read this, but everybody seems to love this, so I want to give it a shot. And then I also have The Husbands by Holly Gramazio. This came in my Book of the Month package. I thought it sounded interesting. I think it's about like this woman who has a new husband every day or something. I don't know, but it sounded really funny, so I wanted to pick that up. Anyway, thank you so much for watching my April wrap up. I hope that I gave you some options to check out if you feel so inclined, and I'm excited for the upcoming month's worth of reading. I'm very excited to see what books I pick up in Scotland. That'll be fun. That's all I have for you today. Make sure to like and subscribe. And I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.